it's your largest asset, and if done right, you only need to do it one time. You can't take back. I just sold my business. You can't 2 years later say, "Wow, I didn't realize I needed more money to live on." Building a business to save taxes and building a business to sell is two different businesses.
Well, hey, Patrick, I am excited to have you on the Business Exit Success podcast today. I'm going through some of your stuff. We have a couple things in common, and a lot of that goes to educating business owners on how they can best position themselves for a successful sale. So I'm looking forward to your insight and knowledge today and excited to have this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's first just start learning more about what you do, your background, and how you fit into this selling businesses process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a business broker. I have been a business broker for probably 15 years or so, I guess, 14 years, something like that. I used to sell everything: bars, restaurants, gas stations, flower shops, you name it. I kind of sold it. 8 years ago, I bought one of my listings, which was a heating and air company. Ran it for 2 years. I realized I didn't want to be in business again
Yeah.
and with employees and customers and everything. And I missed
Yep.
the brokerage world. So went to sell that business, and I realized there wasn't a lot of information out there specifically for heating and air and smaller size companies. So um, I decided to change my practice, focus on heating and air. I'm based in the state of Florida, so initially it was just Florida companies. So
Hmm.
about 6 years ago, I guess I made the transition of my business to just selling heating and air and plumbing, primarily heating and air. And since that time, I've sold 120 of them around the country. So I help people who are typically looking to retire, move on to the next phase of their life, and sell what's oftentimes their largest asset.
Awesome. So you were in the trenches doing the transactions, actually helping these owners sell their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all day, every day. So I do about 20 a year. Yeah, it's from start to finish. We value the business, take it to market looking for buyers, and then handle the transaction until the final close.
Awesome. That's funny. So like from my role, because again, when we're selling businesses, I don't do the transactions. That's obviously your side. I'm trying to help these owners get financially prepared so they can sell, but then hopefully, not run out of money in retirement. And a lot of that comes into making sure their business can sell for an X dollars amount to help fund that. So definitely some key roles there. Um, so what is the current state of the market? I remember hearing earlier this year, HVAC companies and heating and air, they were getting scooped up by these bigger players. Is that still the case? What's the current trend as of late?
Yeah, there's still a lot of private equity interest. The market has been strong really the last 3 years. And so they started only buying large companies. They bought all them up and had to move down market.
Yeah.
And so even smaller companies are getting bought up by private equity. I think we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. Obviously, interest rates are extremely high and money's become expensive.
Yeah.
And so I think we'll get some pushback as a result of that. But here we are in October, and I've already sold 17 this year, and I've got 4 or 5 more under contract, hopefully close before the end of the year. So the numbers are
Yeah.
staying where they have been for me the last few years, anyways.
And when you say they're scooping up these smaller ones, what size businesses are these, just to give us an idea?
So I think the smallest I've sold to private equity was probably $1 million, $900,000 in sales.
Okay.
So in the heating and air space, it's a decent sized company. But when they first started entering in the space, it was $10 million or above in sales.
Yeah.
And now for them to be down to $1 million in sales is quite a drop in
Sure.
their purchasing.
Yeah. And these buyers, like I know there's, we hear of private equity or there's financial buyers, which maybe you can just touch on the difference of between those two for folks listening. But who are the buyers right now that you're seeing come in and scoop up these businesses?
Yeah, so a little bit of everything. So we have some private equity funds. So it's actually a private equity group that's actively buying and managing these businesses.
Okay.
What I classify as financial buyers. So it may be somebody who was in the trades. They owned a heating and air company, and they've brought in outside money to help them
Yep.
acquire other companies. So instead of going to a bank for a loan, they're going to an investment type of firm, whether it's private equity or family office or somebody they know, and getting capital to go out and buy these other companies. And then we see a lot of other mom and pops buying other mom and pops. So people who want to expand. The
Sure.
biggest problem facing the industry, and so many of them right now, is lack of qualified labor. So finding somebody to do the work. Most people are not
Yeah.
having a problem getting the phone to ring. It's when the phone rings, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
And that's led to some acquisitions. So we see other companies that are struggling to attract or retain talent is buying other companies that has the talent already there.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And that's not just your industry. That's finding good talent, retaining them as well is definitely one of the probably the biggest challenges I see all over the place.
Yeah,
To be
absolutely.
honest.
And unfortunately the trades are not immune to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that comes into like when we talk about I've talked to folks about timing of when to sell. Usually when you're rocking and rolling, you're busy, your revenue's going up, like no one's like, I want to keep this going. I don't want to sell right now. When actually that's the best time to talk to someone like you to at least explore like what could we get for this. um so when people come to you to sell, what are some of the reasons they're coming to sell? What are those triggering events that are saying, hey, I need to call Patrick and see what we can do? What have you been seeing in that space?
Yeah, quite often it's an age factor. They're reaching retirement age. Many of the people who I sell businesses for still love the business and love the industry,
Yeah.
but their body can't take it, or their husbands
Yeah.
or wives are saying, "Hey, it's time for you to slow down," or their family's doing it.
Yeah.
Also, the lack of labor is pushing a lot. They've
Mm,
been kind of beating their heads against the wall. And you brought up a good point just prior to that, though. Oftentimes they wait too long. So the right time to sell is when things are operating at peak efficiency. And unfortunately, too many people come to me, and when I'm looking at their numbers and they're doing $1 million or $2 million in sales, and they tell me they used to do 4 million, and they're still expecting to get paid on what they used to do in the past.
yeah.
And they've lost some employees, they've lost some customers, or they lost some drive. They've slowed down, and don't want to work as hard. And so as a result, their business has declined, and now they're coming to me expecting to get what it was worth previously, and that's not going to happen.
Mm,
So I do podcasts like this, I do speaking opportunities, we write articles, I've got videos on YouTube. I do all that to educate them on that process, because to me, once you start your business, you should start, putting a metric in place of what is it worth, just like you do
mm,
obviously with your clients and their financial plan. You're tracking that progress and knowing where you are.
yeah.
Most people don't know what their business is worth, and they really don't know who to ask. And
Yeah.
so we try to give as much information as we can to anybody that says, here's where you are today. If your plan is to make it to X amount of dollars or X amount of years or whatever that is, here's what you need to do to get there, just like you're doing,
Mm,
from the financial perspective. And I think, both of them are super important. And I tell people, the mathematics of the sale is the easy part. Once you've done the financial planning part and you know what the check needs to say to walk away,
yeah.
it either makes mathematical sense or it doesn't. It's everything else. And so I really work on the everything else. While, someone like you is doing the financing part of it. How much do you need to make it to and through retirement, right? Not just
Yeah.
get to retirement, but be able to make it all the way through. And so, and obviously you do a great job in doing that. My job is saying, okay, now that we know where the target is, here's what we need to do to get there from a business perspective.
Yeah. And it's almost like you don't want to go into that arena blind. Like you want to go in know like, hey, listen, I did the numbers. I want my lifestyle to look like X. We need to get at least here. If better, great. But if less, it's not going to work.
Right.
And that probably helps you to be like, okay, great. Now we have a goal to shoot for. Let's find people that can fit that criteria to make it happen. I mean, is that pretty
Absolutely.
accurate?
So when a seller, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but when a seller comes to me all the time, I'll say, what does the check need to say for you to walk away? I
Yeah.
always ask that. And so many times they say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, if it's your largest asset, and if done right, you only need to do it one time. You can't take back, I just sold my business. You can't 2 years later say, wow, I didn't realize I needed more money to live on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can't
It's too
change your
late.
mind. Yeah, absolutely. And you're giving
Yeah.
away the golden goose or selling the golden goose at that point. So knowing what that number needs to be from someone like you is so helpful for my side of the business, because then we know what the where it needs to be, and then it's a clearer answer. Here's what the
Mm,
check needs to say: the business is not there as of now, or the business is.
yeah.
So now you're working because you want to, as opposed to having to.
And another layer on top of that is there seems to be some a light bulb goes off when they're like, "Hey, we can sell for 2 million," but that's not the check that you're going to get when you sell for 2 million. There's more that comes in. I just did a podcast episode on this. There's taxes, there's fees, there's all these other layers that when you peel back the onion, oh, you sold for 2, but you may get 1.2, you may get 1.5. So again, just to what Patrick is saying, the planning in advance, knowing your number, but then I'm sure you can help them too with, hey, here's the net that you're going to actually get in your pocket that we need that check to say. So that's some really, really good insight.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what has to be paid off? Is there debt that has to be paid off with the business? And really, one of the biggest things that people don't realize is, what does the business pay for?
Mm.
So many of my clients haven't bought a personal vehicle in 30 years.
Yeah, it's
They haven't
part of the
had,
business.
yeah, haven't had insurance, haven't paid for a cell phone, haven't bought gas, haven't, these little things that don't sound like much, but you put a pencil to it and it becomes real money. And
Yeah.
so looking at those things through the process, obviously, that you do with them, it helps identify those things. So
Mm.
then when you say yes to accept the offer, you can do it with confidence that the check's going to be big enough. And as you're 100% right, net, because there are going to be things that are going to have to be paid out of there, and
Mm.
making sure you understand that before you cash that check is important.
Yeah, 100%. So what are some of the characteristics, of a heating and air company? They come to you, they want to sell, and, you're probably sitting at their kitchen table or in a meeting in your office. Like, what are some of the characteristics that you want to see in a business that's like, I can sell this thing? Or,
Yeah, and
what comes to mind there?
yeah, great question. And really, it's not just heating and air. I think of all the businesses I've sold over the years, it's all the same. One, it's
Absolutely.
clean books and records. So building a business to save taxes and building a business to sell is two different businesses. Our
Yes.
whole lives is being self-employed. It's always about minimizing taxes and minimizing taxes. And many people treat their business checking account like it's their personal bank account.
Hmm.
And so they bleed the business. And then when it's time to sell, they're not showing any profits, but they're wink, wink, we're making a lot of money. Well, a buyer's not going to pay you on what they can't prove.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have clean books and records that easily show the profit. And that's, once again, that's not heating and air, that's anything. Second thing is minimizing yourself in the business. If you're the best salesman, the best technician, the best person who answers the phone, the best accountant, the best in the business, and your name's on every review on Google, chances are a buyer's going to be scared when they buy it, because they know when you walk out the door, everybody's leaving with you.
Yeah.
So separating yourself from the business and making the business its own identity as opposed to just you is the other thing. Building a business, once again, heating and air or not, that's built on recurring revenue. If
Mm.
you're constantly having to look for new clients and spending money on marketing, you have a marketing business, not a heating and air, plumbing, electrical, whatever trade you happen to be in.
Sure.
So identifying those things, and building a business that's built on relationships, developing relationships with your customers that generate repeat and referral business. Obviously, the cheapest client acquisition is going to be referrals, and so anything you can do to boost that up is going to be beneficial. And then
Mm.
really the fourth thing, and for heating, is staying away from kind of flashes in the pan. So in heating and air and other trades, a lot of that's going to be new construction. Doing new construction work could make or break you. In a great year, you can make a lot of money, and the economy drops, you could be out of business. And so buyers, when looking at businesses that have one-off type of income,
Yeah.
they don't like that. They like slow, consistent, over time revenue. So do those four things no matter what industry you're in. And
Yeah.
when you get to me or somebody like me, they're going to be able to achieve your goals from a sale price.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to back up to something you mentioned where, we all as business owners, again, one of the perks of being a business owner is you have so many ways to reduce your taxes.
Sure.
And by all means, do it. But if you are coming to the point in your life where it's like, I think I want to maybe sell this thing or explore getting out, you at least need, I would say 3 to 4 years, maybe that's too long, of like showing profit, like a
3 years is
trend.
ideal.
Okay,
Yeah, three
perfect. Great to
years.
know.
Most buyers are going to ask for 3 years of financials,
Yeah.
but here's the flip side of that. If the ultimate goal is to sell someday, we don't know when that day is going to be.
Mm,
Some of my clients come to me because of health issues. Some of them come to me because of a divorce. Well, if you've been bleeding this company dry and minimizing taxes, and now you find out you've got an illness, let's use that as a horrible example. You have an illness and you need to sell, put yourself in a buyer's shoes. So if I came to you and said, Tom, I've got this great business for you, we're asking $1 million, and you look at a tax return and it shows that it's lost money the last 3 years, how much are you willing to pay me for it? Probably
yeah.
not much. And so if you put yourself in a buyer's shoes, that helps eliminate a lot of the things that you're probably doing wrong today.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think there is a statistic by the Exit Planning Institute that 50% of business exits are forced. They're not like, hey, I'm ready to go. 50% are forced because of life events, like you mentioned, an illness, disability, a disagreement, a distress environment like COVID happening that usually forces you to be like, I literally can't do this anymore. And what I see oftentimes is like a contingency plan, a succession plan. There is no plan. There's nothing in place that can back that up. So again, planning ahead, talking to someone like you in advance is definitely a good thing to secure your legacy and, your personal financial future. So that's good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. And I haven't seen the study recently, but IBBA, the International Business Broker Association, had published some information previously that 80% of businesses listed for sale never sell.
Yeah.
So there's only a 20% success rate. And a lot of that, in my opinion, is because of poor numbers.
Yeah.
And I think poor marketing and poor other things. I mean, I think there's other things that go into that.
Sure.
But numbers are the first thing people are going to look at, and so planning that, and that's an atrocious ratio to me. I mean, to
Oh, it's
think an
terrible.
80% failure rate at something is just horrible. But but we sell a lot of businesses where people have a lot of good numbers and a lot of clean books and all the things we've already talked about.
Yeah.
And they've got a plan in place of when they hit that point, here's where it's going to be. And if it happens sooner, great. If it happens a little later, great. But at least it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the biggest things that we talk about are these value drivers. You mentioned financials, operations, getting the owner out of the truck. So having good people and technicians on your team, so you're not the one that's doing everything. Recurring revenue, that's a really attractive value driver, especially for buyers. And I think that may segue into, for these companies, the maintenance agreements,
Yep.
which is a pretty hot topic, I think. And I think I heard someone say to you on another podcast or something, that they're not important, where it's like they're super important. They can make up the majority of the revenue of a business that tends to sell. So can you just speak about maintenance agreements, their role within making a business attractive?
Yeah. So we'll use heating and air specifically, obviously, because that's what
Yeah,
the bulk
sure.
of what I do. So maintenance agreements are incredible. One, they don't necessarily generate a lot of revenue, because when you charge, most maintenance agreements are $200 a year and it's 2 visits in the client's home.
Sure.
Where it's beneficial is, one, the client's paying for their own loyalty. So if I'm paying you $200 a year to look at after my system, if my system stops working, well, who am I calling first? Calling the guy I'm paying $200 a year for. So
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
automatically they're paying for their own loyalty. The second part, it helps during shoulder season. So typically you do maintenances in the spring and fall time, before summer, so you can check the system before they ramp
Mm,
up for the summer, and then in the fall before winter, before they need to run their heaters. And so it gives you an opportunity to keep your guys busy when it's typically slower. Like, I'm in North Florida, and today I think it's supposed to be in the 70s. Well, a 70-degree day, I used to love until I owned a heating and air company, because if it's 70 degrees, nothing's running and nothing's breaking, right? The windows are open and it's a good day. And so having the opportunity to keep your guys busy, it also helps you educate younger guys. So they can be going through systems and checking things a lot more often and taking time, things that may not be broken yet, but it helps them identify things and helps them get better. And then finally, it helps deepen the relationship with the customer. If you're in the customer's home 2 times a year, there's opportunities to talk about indoor air quality and other things that
Mm,
if it's just a demand call, if it's 4th of July at 8 o'clock at night, you're not talking about indoor air quality. You're fixing their air conditioner and running to the next call.
yeah,
And so that gives you an opportunity to help deepen that relationship. Identify what the customer's needs really are in their home. Is the equipment that they have meeting those needs, or should you give them some options of other things? So it allows to deepen that relationship, take time, builds trust, and explore other opportunities. A lot of companies are adding multi trades to their business now. They're doing heating and air, and they're adding plumbing or electrical or vice
sure.
versa. And so they can talk about the water heater, talk about other things that they may be able to take a look at. So maintenance agreements are incredible opportunities. To me, it helps you deliver better service to the customer, and
Yeah.
it helps you do a better job for your business and retain talent. So, and when you look at companies that have big maintenance programs, where a large percentage of their customers are on a maintenance agreement, you'll see 80 to 90% of their revenues coming from those maintenance customers. So they're minimizing marketing expense. They've got a built-in database that's taking care of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gets you, like you mentioned, more at bats to be in front of a customer. And when issues happen, they know who to call. And it just
Absolutely.
gives you more opportunity to get new revenue for the business.
Absolutely. Deeper share of wallet,
Mm,
because you're in the home more often, the relationship's better. And when if you're in that customer's home 2 or 3 times a year and you do that for 3 or 4 years, when it's time to replace the equipment, who are they going to call? Well, they're going to call the person that
yeah.
they've had 10 visits with, that they've talked about, that knows their dog's name, all these other things that when you're running on demand calls, you can't always get to.
Yeah. A relationship business. That's no different than a lot of the other industries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's by
fantastic.
design.
Yeah. Well, as we come to the end, again, I try to keep these episodes where we're giving some good actionable tips for folks. Would you say, like the top three things an HVAC or heating and air company, or again, any company that could really apply to, but we'll stick with HVAC because that's your expertise. What are like three things they should be looking at if they're considering selling that, so when they're not sitting across from you, you're like, this isn't sellable. Like, what are the top three to prioritize it that someone can work on?
So one is know your numbers. Know
Mm,
where you are. But many people don't. They don't know what their sales are. They don't know what their business is worth. They don't know any of that stuff.
yeah.
And so finding out their numbers, what they need, what their business is worth, and what they need to do to change that if it's not where it needs to be, I think would be the first thing. Second thing, we've discussed about is clean books and records. I mean
Yeah.
that's stop having the business pay for everything, and minimizing taxes. Numbers, if you're looking at selling, the numbers are way in your favor on paying taxes and then selling the business for a higher multiple. Um, and then and
And
then
maybe
minimizing.
real quick,
Go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to cut you off. Sometimes
No,
that's investing in a qualified CPA to clean up your books and maybe delegate some of it. Because I'm sure a lot of us, we get QuickBooks, we do it on our own, and your business, but if you want clean numbers that are, accurate and being reviewed, putting some money back into your business and hiring someone qualified could be maybe a good idea. No?
absolutely. Yeah. And I don't work on my own air conditioners. I can't fix air conditioners. I'm not going to
Yeah,
do my
yeah,
own taxes. I
exactly.
mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to do bad taxes. And so that's not my lane. I need to focus on what I'm focusing on. And
Hmm.
I agree completely. Is getting the right people on your team.
Yeah.
Because when you go to sell and they start going through the due diligence process, and if you're building a bigger company and it's a private equity group showing up with 15 CPAs to pick through your books, many people look like a deer in headlights. They don't even know what they're talking about or what's going on. If they can say, "Here, call my accountant," they'll take care of the process for you.
Yeah.
That makes things so much easier and less stressful for you. So absolutely.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. You want to almost do, because there's a due diligence process. When someone's interested in you, they're going to open the hood to your business and look in everything, everything. So do that if you can, like a mock trial of that in advance. So if you have issues, you can take care of them before then, because you only get one chance to sell your business. very unlikely that you get to sell 2 businesses unless you're really a true entrepreneur at heart and want to do it and have the time and energy and money to do it. But yeah, the sooner you get through, hey, here's what my books look like, here's what we got to clean, that due diligence would probably be a good idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And having those people on the team like you'd suggested would be extremely important to make that happen.
Yeah. Wow, fantastic, Patrick. A good super 30-minute session here on some tips. What are some ways that people can find you, connect with you, learn more about you? List whatever you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So my website, my company is Business Modification Group. So my website is businessmodificationgroup.com. I'm extremely active on LinkedIn and Facebook. Feel free to connect with me on either of those. I've got a YouTube channel. I probably have 60 or 70 videos that talk about buying and selling and heating and air specifically, but like the podcast today, it can be applied to any business. And so taking a look at that as well, and reach out to me directly. All my contact information is everywhere. If you have a question, even if I'm not the guy to help you, I can try to point you in the right direction. So don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help anybody I can.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your time, man. Really good stuff.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time, and hope you have a fantastic day.
Thanks. You too.